All right, we're live.
Okay, October 9th, 2023, Old Farm Districts Neighborhood Association October board meeting. This is the public session. We have at least one guest presenter tonight from Cascade East Transit. My name is James DeRofi. I'm the board chair. If we could go around the room quickly, introduce ourselves.
Jim Goodman.
Carol Johnson, land use chair.
Brian Kennedy,
Austin.
Eric Lynn, Cascade East Transit,
And Pam.
Ann Perry, I'm a guest.
And Ann is also a big volunteer with us as well. So she's more than just a guest. Jen Sawyer is absent, but may be joining us later. But we don't really have too much craziness on the agenda tonight, but we will talk some of our regular items. First, since Eric is our guest, let's start off with Cascade East Transit. We finally have a route that goes through our neighborhood. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so my name's Eric. I served 4 years on the board. I live over in the apartments off of Broster House. I think this week will be 9 years in Bend. But yeah, I started with Cascade East Transit a year ago, and long before that, I was bothering them about bus stops and service in this area. Now I work for them and I'm responsible for making it happen. So Route 9 is our newest route in Bend. This was something that was part of the City of Bend's transportation system plan, and Cascade East Transit has its own 20-year plan, and that's the 2040 master plan. Called for expansion into new areas of town, and of course, everyone here knows that Old Farm was annexed in 1998 from county lands, and tends to be larger lot homes and spread apart, and running down Ferguson and King Hezekiah and places like that. It's not amenable to a bus line exactly, but things have been changing. We're getting new development down 15th, more density, bigger neighborhoods. We've got the park at Alpenglow. We've got Caldera High. And then over on the other side on Broster House, there's Nativity Lutheran, which has houseless supportive services. They have a food kitchen there, safe parking program. And right up the road is the Pines, large trailer park community, which has one of the highest concentrations of Spanish speakers in City of Bend. And also a lot of folks without a car in this area. So that's one thing I was looking at with our mapping software is, who are the communities that we're going to reach, and will people actually use the bus in this area? So overwhelmingly it's yes. It wasn't just me and James and the gang agitating for years for this. Like, there's public demand here. There's people that really want a bus and need it to get around. So last week, Monday, we finally launched this. This was in the works since 2019. The plans were fairly well finalized last year, but the big hang-up was drivers. It takes 1.5 FTE employees to make something like this happen.
We know you love acronyms. Eric, what's an FTE?
Full-time employees.
Why, thank you, sir.
So Cascade East Transit has a lot of different configurations for drivers. The ones in Bend are all contracted through another company called MTM, but we were finally able to recruit enough folks that we could get this off the ground. That's also what let us do the Transit the Trails service that you might have seen this summer. So you probably know we have the ski shuttle to Mount Bachelor. Super popular every year, and that one is paid $7 one way, $12 round trip. But this summer, for the first time, we launched a Transit the Trails program thanks to a federal grant called Federal Lands Access Program. And this lets us go up there while there's good companies like Cog Wild that do adventure sports up there. We're the only ones that do ADA access. You can take your wheelchair up to Mount Bachelor or to the Cascade Lakes Welcome Center and engage in activities out there.
So hypothetically, you could go from 15th Street on a Cascade East Transit bus all the way up to Mount Bachelor now.
That's right.
That's a pretty impressive service.
Yep.
And that happens every 5 minutes?
Oh, God, no.
Oh, okay.
No. So the new Route 9 is every 45 minutes. This is, I believe, our longest route in Bend at almost 10 miles long. And to get everyone fitted in there, it's only one way. But we do cover a lot of territory. I put on our little promo here that there's 12,000 people just in this area. So that's not all of the Old Farm, but some of Southeast Bend neighborhoods as well, and some of the area up around Bend High and Larkspur Center here. 5,000 homes within a third of a mile of this route. 10% of them are car-free, and of course there's some neighborhoods where that's a lot higher. But we're really excited about this, hopeful that it can help a lot of people. And we are looking forward down the line to improving those times. One thing that we're experimenting with is calling this an express on 3rd Street. We already have the red line, the number 1 bus that goes up and down 3rd Street. This one is only going to stop, the new one only stops at Fred Meyer and Grocery Outlet unless you pull the cord. You can get off at any of the regular stops, but you can, if you pull the cord. Otherwise, it's just going to keep on going. And we're doing that because City of Bend in their TSP and also in the GO bond called for, it's called ITS, Intelligent Traffic Signals or Systems, but it's the smart red lights. So similar to what works with ambulances and cop cars, these intelligent traffic systems can detect when a bus is approaching and keep the green light green longer so that we can get back to the station. So it makes those express buses that much faster.
So we shouldn't tailgate buses to speed through town?
No. But that's something that we've been working towards. All of our buses now have an automatic vehicle locator system, which is GPS, that will work with this system once the City of Bend gets it on board. So we're ready to go, and we just need to write some more grants and get that stuff going.
What is the automatic vehicle locator? How does that work?
It's pretty much the GPS system that's on our vehicles. Works a lot like the GPS on the phone.
So with the app for the bus system, when you hold up the app, it will show you where the bus is as it's approaching you. So you know whether to run to the bus stop or if you have 2 or 3 minutes.
That's future improvements that we're looking at too. Is I am buying a electronic signage for a Madras right now, and we want to bring this to Bend too, but have the nice signage at the high traffic bus stops at least saying your bus is 3 minutes away or whatever.
The airports.
Exactly, yeah. And in Madras, we have the big Spanish speaking population, so it'll switch back and forth between English and Spanish as well.
Eric, could you give an example of the 10% car-free, where that might be a location?
Yeah, there's actually 3 trailer parks along this route. There's the one right up the road here, Suntree, on the other side of 15th. There's the one down on South Broster House, the Pines. And then there's one behind the Bent Factory stores as well, on Peril. And that's why we kind of jog up Peril before getting back to 3rd Street there. And there was a good video that KTVZ did last week. I wasn't able to get back to them in time, so they just hopped on the bus and took a ride and talked to the folks on the bus. And one of the ladies there, she works for a Parks Department here and lives in the Pines. And she was saying that this is great. This changes my life. Don't have to walk an hour to get places, and I can get around when there's snow. So that was really good for us to hear. It's a reminder of why we do this.
So just,
Okay, thanks.
I have a couple questions just to clarify. So there'll be just one bus that's running this route. And then I see it says weekdays. Are there anything in the works for expanding that to weekends?
Yeah, we're looking at so this was the priority for expansion. Next up is Route 8, which will be in Northeast Bend. So that's Empire Avenue in that area, right? At the same time, we want to get back to having early morning and late evening service and weekend service. So that's all part of restoring service hours for us. It's really important because, transit all across the country saw drops with the pandemic. And even before that, it was kind of declining due to the way people live and where they live. But in the pandemic, we had to cut back hours because we lost so many drivers. At the age of our workforce, a lot of folks retired or, decided it wasn't worth it anymore in the pandemic years, right?
It was even happening with the school buses.
Exactly, right.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's not just this.
So it'll take at least 6 more drivers to get there, at least. But that's a big priority because we saw ridership drop heavily because that's when folks are going to work and coming back. And I was talking about it runs down 9th as well and stops over by the DIY cave. There's that Bevel Brewing over there. You can go grab a beer, but better drink it quick because you got to catch a bus before 6. So.
And what's the timeline for it opening? Are you guys targeting next year?
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay. So
Well, it opened last week.
Oh, this one opened last week, but
this one's open now, so it's running now.
Yeah. The service improvements we want to gradually do as we can next year.
What's the bicycle capacity for the bus?
2 or 3 bus. I think it's 3 bikes on the front. Yeah.
On the front of the rack?
Yeah.
And e-bikes are, I don't know why people would be on an e-bike on a bus, but little support, the extra weight and everything.
The front racks we discourage. The e-bikes, if you have a light one and you know what you're working with, we'll trust you. But yeah, those ones that are 80 pounds, we can't put on there.
And
there's-
the long ones really don't fit.
Yeah, there's sometimes room to bring them into the wheelchair area on board the bus, but some folks frown on that because, if someone gets on, like especially on 3rd Street, we have a lot of wheelchair passengers, and we'll have to ask you to step aside for that.
Huge, a problem that needs to be addressed.
That's right.
Any other questions for Eric?
No, I thought that was very informative.
It's free also, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's free.
It's free.
You can ride circles if you like. And they have Wi-Fi on there too now.
Get some work done.
And if somebody wants to get the app or whatever to figure out what the actual schedule is,
Yeah,
they hit the smart tag or they go to CascadesEastTransit.com.
that's right. CascadesEastTransit.com. We've got a special page just for this one explaining a little more about it. But all of the schedules are available on there, and we're going to be fixing that website soon too. So make it a little easier to use.
Cool.
Notice you have 9th at Bend High School, and the pickup time's at 3:48. And I don't know if you're aware, but the school typically gets out at 3:45.
I'll be running.
We might be making some adjustments here.
Lesson learned. Okay. Next topic. A week or so ago, we held the transportation utility fee forum with Councilor Keebler and Councilor Riley and city staff. I did not attend, but the rest of the board did. Would you like to just give a breakdown, lessons learned? Is there anything that we should talk about regarding that? And on that note, there is another forum on the 25th on the west side for other neighborhood associations. We'll have that information in our newsletter. And this Wednesday is the final roundtable for that transportation utility forum at the Bend Municipal Court from 9:30 till noon. So board, I'm just going to sit back for this part and let you guys chat about it from what you learned, or what we should learn as a board.
Well, one thing I would just kind of put into the record that we attempted to gather and solicit questions for the panel in advance, which I think is really helpful. But I also think we might phrase our invitation in such a way that people submit constructive questions that we actually can repeat. Some of those that we did get were that there was some honest intent in there, but there were a lot of editing needed to be done in order to phrase that into a workable question for the panel. So I think if we do this type of thing again, that we offer some suggestions about types of questions to ask, because it can't be a rant or a rave, but it needs to be something that you'd really like to get the answer to. And the question should be formed as such. But it was really helpful to have, input from others that weren't just in the room. I think it helped the flow of the information. So,
Good point.
I would say you don't necessarily need to wait until such forums to pose your questions to city council and the mayor either. Just send them in. They're looking for more and more input. And so yeah, the more the better. The more constructive, the better as well.
Well, like I said, I wasn't there, so I don't know how your guys.
well, I think the panel, I felt the feedback that we got the night of was all very positive. I was a little bit, I was pleased, frankly, because my senses were that there were some individuals who were sort of lying in wait for the city representatives to be there. But the tone was more respectful. And I think that those who had questions that they wanted to specifically ask the panel live that evening were able to do so. And I think they got answers. And I thought the city staff and our representatives were really good about sticking around after we closed the meeting, and they did speak directly to the people who came to the meeting and on their more personal, individualized questions, I think, which I think really went a long way to making that a successful evening, all told. So I think that's another vote for attending when we have these opportunities. I think it's, we do record them and sometimes we can live stream them, but that was an added benefit for people who actually were there, because they got some good FaceTime with the individuals who make some really important decisions for our community. So
yeah, I want to echo that too. I think being more attendance in person, I think, would be helpful. So there's also some technical difficulties with that big of a room. Yeah, it's just more meaningful to get that direct interaction with your elected officials and the people who are boots on the ground around the city of Bend, to ask them the questions and learn.
Yeah, we did what we could do in terms of, I think, outreach pre-meeting. We did have press coverage with television, newspaper, social media, our email lists, and we did post our signs for the meeting several days before the meeting. So I would encourage Old Farm residents to pay attention when they see those signs go up. They're up for a reason. We pay to get those signs produced, and we physically put them up ourselves. So we don't do that just for anything. We're usually doing them for major events where we certainly are inviting people to attend. So look for those yellow signs, because there's something on them you should know about.
Excellent.
Food, drink.
Food. We had great food. And I encourage you to come to more meetings. We go to Costco and we get those turkey rolls with cheese, lots of cookies. Food will always be good.
And beverages.
A full stomach will always listen. So,
That's right. That's distraction.
all righty. I think, is that good for the tough transportation
I
utility?
think so. Do we have a next? In our minds, is it probably a general meeting next?
So according to what we had decided on as a board, we're going to have one more forum sometime in the spring, to be determined date and topic, because we don't know. And we will have a general meeting in March, which will be here. As far as the next forum, it could be outside. I know City Council has used the Alpenglow Park, and I believe so has Southeast Bend Neighborhood Association. So that outdoor auditorium is already starting to get used. I think more and more people will start getting used to the idea of going there for not just fun functions, but also functional functions.
You can bring your Tommy Bahama chair to our events.
You can bring a chair, you can bring a bike, you can bring bottled water.
With or without zip tie, right?
Without zip ties, you do not have to have a plastic backpack.
See through.
So, okay. Next topic, I just want to make a quick public notice. This Saturday coming up between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., Desert Storms Village is going to be one of the first Southeast Bend transitional housing projects on this side of town opening up. It is at the church, Desert Streams Church, on the corner of 27th Street and Bear Creek. It will have 16 individual shelters. It's going to be upgraded to 20 shelters. It's going to have portable toilets, shower truck. So basically a safe place to take the first step of truly being homeless, transitional housing before they go into a more permanent setting. So for people that have been following the housing crisis and homelessness issue for the last few years, if you really want to see what it looks like, what one of these projects is, I do encourage you to go because it is the first step of many that has been going on and a long time coming.
And is that one women and kids prioritized?
So it does have a priority. You are not allowed, you must be clean and sober, both on and off premises. There are strict rules. So it is a managed camp. They have support services, some meals, case management. I do not know if it is just women or children. I think they're sort of doing all of that based upon need and openings. I know some of the converted hotels, they've been trying to figure out how to change. They had to change a word so that non-families could share a room. I guess the original wording was they had to be family units. And it turned out that a lot of people actually felt safer with some of their very best friends that happened to be houses too.
And that's the northeast corner of 27th and Bear Creek?
Yeah, so this new location is 27th and Bear Creek behind the Desert Streams Church. The neighbors there, so that's technically Larkspur Neighborhood Association, but the neighborhood was very involved with hashing out the details of what a management camp would be, because a lot of people had concerns, valid concerns, but if you want to see what it's like, this is your chance. And then after that, it's basically going to be a secure facility. So they're not just going to let people wander through and go through people's stuff.
So what's the window again?
It's this Saturday.
14th.
And I don't have a calendar in front of me. And that is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
So it's an open house.
It is an open house. Like I said, I just want to put that out there because that is houseless issue has been a concern for a lot of people in this area for a few years. This is just another step to sort of address that.
So parking's at the church, I assume.
It is. I'm not sure how I haven't been there yet, so I don't know how they're routing vehicles in. I mean, it's on church. I believe the church has essentially done a long-term lease donation of their land, but it's not a permanent structure. So
it's fenced though and separated.
It's fenced and secured, but if need be, in a year they could take it down and move it to another location. It's not permanent housing.
Yeah, and the church has lots of parking.
In by a church like that?
It is the first one by the church. One of the initial ones was the Central Oregon's Veterans Village near the sheriff's office, and that's been up and running. That had some bumps getting going too. I believe this is the actual second one that isn't, and they depending on how these work and whether or not they have problems, I do believe there are some need for more. And I think the county commissioners are starting to work with our city staff and city managers and counselors to make this happen, because Deschutes County, I think the last number, someone correct me if I'm wrong, was around 1,600 houseless people for all of the county. And that, of course, is around Redmond as well. So the more of these that pop up and the more they're dispersed, the less people will notice them. And then to go back into history, if you don't take everybody and put them in one spot, it's not really an issue. People won't even notice they're there. Most people don't even realize when an affordable housing project or house is built in town. They literally blend right in now. And that was not how things used to be done 30 and 40 years ago. So that's sort of my personal take on. If you can't tell it's affordable housing, you can't tell it's a homeless transitional shelter, that is most likely not going to be a problem.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing. So that said, next topic. We're going to throw you on the spotlight, Karen.
Okay.
Karen is our land use chair, so if you've got any land use, please start with that and then go to the tree committee.
In terms of land use, there's nothing particularly exciting going on right now. All the projects that have been proposed have been approved. The Stevens Ranch project has already started. You see the construction there, and it's going to provide a lot of housing. It's going to, I think, provide some kind of congestion on 27, but I think ultimately they plan on upgrading 27. They're going to have to. So that's starting. I'm on the tree committee to write or propose a tree code for Bend. People want the old trees saved, some of them. I think people recognize they can't all be saved, but they want some saved. They want to stop the clear cutting that we're seeing, especially in the Southeast Bend. The committee is 15 people, architects, engineers, developers, land use people, and architects, arborists in particular. And the things they were debating is, what should we start with? The ideas to save just the old trees, or should we start with trying to save some of the smaller ones? In other words, what kind of formula do we have to provide? And it's been interesting, the developers like an emphasis on the smaller trees that gives them more flexibility. The arborists say that your big trees, your 20-inch and plus, are the ones that absorb the most carbon. And so what they've come down to is there's going to be an inventory of and map trees on a site. They have to be 6 inches or larger. And if they are, then they have to be on a site plan that shows the species and the size and where they're located on the lot. And then on top of that, you have what's designated the priority trees. Those are 20-inch or larger. We call it DBH, the diameter of breast height, about 4.5 feet. And they've decided that the priority trees will be the ones that ideally will be given priority. But in terms of mapping, anything 6 inches and up has to be designated.
Now, who's doing the mapping?
Taken care of. 6 inches and up for DBH.
Well, who's responsible for doing the mapping?
What?
Who's responsible for doing the mapping?
The developer is when he submits an application, part of the application will have a tree inventory and a site plan where you can see the trees on the site. Right now it's kind of a tree requiem because all you see are the X's, all the trees that are being taken out. And that's, of course, what people want to try to stop. The question is, what kind of formula do you have to provide? Because under law, anything concerning housing, the regulations have to be clear and objective. Ben's code was not clear and objective, and that was what caused one of the problems. It simply was not enforceable because as a matter of law, it was not clear and objective. Right now, the committee has decided that they're going to try to save 25% of the priority trees on the site. The question is invariably mitigation. What if you can't save those trees? In other words, if you're a developer and you have a particular design you want to put in, and should the design be changeable to save some of the trees? Should the city be able to compel a change in the design? And if so, to what degree? Those are right now up in the air. That's the next thing they're going to be debating. I've looked a lot at tree codes, and to me, that's where the rubber meets the road. Because if you have some kind of mandatory minimum of trees saved, the clear cutting will continue, and in mitigation, people will simply plant little trees elsewhere. And that's where I think the committee is going to have some serious discussion, because right now, there's a code that requires mitigation, and all it's done is resulted in little trees being planted elsewhere. So that's where they are, and it'll be interesting to see what they plan to do.
Is that like a 1-for-1? If you cut down
Well,
a
what
4
they're
foot in
looking at,
diameter
what they're looking-
ponderosa, you plant a
Well,
little tiny quaking aspen? Or?
one of the things they're looking at is what proportion should that be? And some of the things they're looking at are tree replacement, regardless of size, maybe 1-for-1 or 1-for-2, or a tree replacement based on the ratio of size removed. For example, 6 to 10 inch, you'll go 1-for-1, 10 to 14 inch, 1-for-2. And if you take out the big ones, 1-for-3. And those are the sort of things that are being discussed at this point.
How's the progress in the discussions?
Well, they have very, very smart people working on this. The problem, and this is just me editorializing, is the city has very rigid standards. And if you want, for example, to have a sidewalk that meanders, or if you want to eliminate the planter strip on one side to give you more room to save some trees, the developer has to apply for a waiver of the public improvement standards. And that's a pain. That means that you have to spend extra time and money to fill out the paperwork, and there's certain criteria that a waiver has to meet, and they're very stringent. Other cities have, for example, like when it comes to local streets, they'll have 4 different options, depending on width, planter strips, sidewalks. So if you want to choose one option or the other, you don't have to file a waiver application. You can simply choose option C. And I think to make this work, the ball really has to be in the city's court. The city has to decide how liberal they want to make their standards, how flexible they want to make them. And that comes down to politics, and that comes down to people telling the city council that they want these trees saved. And I think the pressure has to be continually put on to save the older trees.
Can you speak to how this applies? I mean, I know there's a lot of development that's already begun. The Polish, our Petrosa, the Easton, all of those, I mean, they've already been pre-leveled.
Yes.
So how far out are we looking on something like this? And then it will apply to like, you know what I'm saying? Are there going to be any more developments left by the time this gets, that haven't already been?
Yeah, that's a very good point. The committee, I think, intends to make its recommendations by December. But then the question is, how fast will the city move? There are a lot of things that could be done, like give more liberal design standards. But that sort of thing has to come from the city engineering department and the city staff. And that, I think, is where the politics comes in. The sooner the tree code is written, the sooner it will take effect. And I think it's ultimately going to be up to the city to decide how hard they want to push this. And that is where citizen involvement has to come in.
I think a good example of that is the development over Stevens development East and 7th there, and the new 88 unit development that's going to be part of that. And thank you for forwarding that information on the approval.
The Stevens tract is going to be done under the present code, which is to say no code at all.
Yeah, and I was reading the language there. It says, because they're giving the developer sort of a conditional approval, and they're saying and they talk about significant vegetation, meaning trees that are maybe 10 inches in diameter or something, mostly junipers, because it says the applicable protection measures allow the removal of significant vegetation only when the location of the trees conflict with the development of planned streets, public utilities, needed housing, or land uses permitted in the zone in our master plan. Well, that's an open gate.
That's
I mean, that
everything.
just
Everything.
Allows anything.
At this time, there's a code on the books, it's not clear and objective, and so it's not enforceable. The reality is Bend has no tree preservation code at all.
So there's 27 trees in that 88 unit section, and the developer wants to remove every one of them, all 27 of
You
them.
can do it,
There's nothing.
nothing you can do to stop it. On that cheerful note, I'm done.
How about an update on the Murphy Road Ward expansion? I think it's what, phase 4 and 5 now, Murphy and Country Club.
If you're standing on Knott and you're looking north along Country Club Road, there's a 550 unit development as part of the Ward minor master plan. And that has just gotten approval to begin, and they will begin putting in 550 units there. It's going to be, in terms of immediately south of Murphy, it's going to be a very, very big development. And they're ready to start. And I don't know when they're going to start breaking ground, but it's been approved, it's ready to go.
They removed the commercial from that.
Is that-
They removed the commercial zone from that area, right?
Well, my recollection is
They had like this
that
tiny
there's
little.
a tiny
square.
little, maybe a quarter or half an acre commercial, convenience commercial there. I think that's still there.
Okay.
I tried looking on the plans. I couldn't.
I think they
I got
argued that
overwhelmed.
the corner of Murphy and Broster House satisfies the requirements, so they deleted it.
To me, it'd be a cool thing to do. I mean, you could have a little store
Yeah.
there, you could have a daycare.
If you can
center
find
there.
out if it's there, I would love to know that information.
But I know there was talk about.
Brewery.
I
People
have
don't want a
not-
brewery there, right?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's still there or not.
That's not the location where the gas station is going to go in.
No.
Oh, the gas station. Oh, I'm.
Oh.
I saw.
No. So this is we're talking the corner of behind the fire station of
Yeah.
Reed Market, or behind the fire station on Country Club.
And it's what's the name of the road that goes into the subdivision to the west? It's kind of right across from there. It's where that little red square was. And I'm not.
It's like Bend Country
It's right
Club?
there.
Okay.
So James, you couldn't find. So you think they've taken that out?
I don't know. I got very lost as I was trying to read through the plans. I read some people's comments on it. I know, just for the people that do watch this video, I think we saw the first land use notice of that in 19.
Yeah.
I think, and then they submitted it the week before Christmas for public comments. And if we had not been reading our emails, everything would have gone through without anything. And it is a 5-phase true master plan on both the north and south side of Murphy. So it's definitely 1,000+ units total.
Total.
It's important to read the fine print, even when it's a silly email. What is this?
I got a question back to the tree code. I hate to take us backwards
Sure.
a bit, but the space that COID is selling for development
By the river.
just west of
Brookswood.
Brookswood,
Yeah.
is the tree code going to be applicable to that space?
Well, the tree code will be applicable to every part of town except the southeast development plan, where they have emphasis is on saving 24-inch diameter breast height trees. But yes, the tree code or lack thereof will definitely be impacting the Brookswood development there.
So that particular development, they're not going to be allowed to start for a while. So
Years?
most likely the tree code will be implemented by that time. Should be. I think they have like 10 years. So
I should note on that development, it shows the power of citizen involvement. The neighbors there formed a group, I think a Save Bend Green Space, something to that effect. And COID owns that property. Part of it has a view easement for Mount Bachelor Village, and that part can't be developed until 2034. The part to the south can be, and they're negotiating with Polish to sell that. The question is, because it's a canal and it's an energy source, the federal FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, has jurisdiction over that area. And COID had to have a easement from their pumps all the way down to the river. They were proposing an easement that in effect cut everything and went straight to the river as cheaply as possible. FERC got involved. The citizens have appeared as a party, and they're urging that the federal standards, as you say, recreation and environment, be applied to this easement and the trail. So they're making a major nuisance of themselves. And I don't know what the status is, but I know that right now it's before the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to decide what that trail is going to look like down to the river.
well, I guess it's up to Congress. I guess it's up to Congress.
Yeah.
Scary as that might be.
Lucky us.
Yes. That's it. Any other land use?
No, not that I can think of.
Any other questions for Ms. Johnson being our land use chair? At this point, Brian, I'm going to hand it to you. Since we're not doing cleanups, do you have anything you'd like to add? And on your, just so you know, as I went to the dump landfill the other day, the county sheriffs were cleaning up the side of the road that the junior high was on. And this weekend is one of very few free chemical waste disposal weekends. So if you've got paint thinner or oil or antifreeze sitting at your house, you can get rid of it this weekend.
Yep.
But if you have anything you'd like to add regarding future volunteer,
Well, we might try to get one more in before the weather gets. So that's kind of weather pending. So,
okay.
but there's still a need out there for sure. I mean, they may have cleaned up that section of 27, but if you went a little bit further north of that, you think we're in a third world country. So there's still.
There was only 3 people, so
Well, sometimes it's all we have, but we get it done. But yeah, we're still going to try and get some more work in before the snows fly. So yeah, more on that.
I don't have anything else on the agenda. Is there anything else that anyone would like to discuss?
Neighborhood street safety program. We're going to be looking at, we're looking at 4 different locations right now. So if anybody has any suggestions, please fire off a note to the board, which you can send us a message from the website, which is oldfarmbend.com. I'll also be sending, if you're already on our mailing list, I'll be sending out a survey to get your input on the locations we've already identified for street safety projects. In particular, we're looking at crosswalks for the most part right now. Well, we'd love some roundabouts. The budget's not there for street safety programs. It's more like, believe that's to be underneath $450,000. Crosswalks certainly fall into that category. So look for that in your email. It's coming soon, or you can sign up to get onto our mailing list once again at oldfarmbend.com. That's all I got.
Thank you, Ross.
I have a question on
Yes.
regarding Ferguson, because I guess the sewer project now is complete, pretty much. Do we know, or has there been any new conversation about the circle at Ferguson and 15th? What the timeline?
We were discussing that a little bit earlier. I have to look into that. I believe it is part of the transportation system plan. There was some disagreement that it may also be funded by the GO bond. I do not believe that is the case. I should have that answer in 24 or 48 hours. I can shoot you an email.
Not the Ferguson and 27th?
No, 15.
Oh, 15th, oh.
So
That is becoming a nightmare corner
Yeah.
because of all the traffic going to Caldera, and anyone that's going south on 15th that wants to make a left
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
and it backs.
it's been identified as one of the possible neighborhood street safety program requests. Doesn't mean it'll get listed because they have sidewalks that go to non-crosswalks. This is Oregon, so technically any intersection is a crosswalk. That does not mean people stop. Even if you're standing in the road, it doesn't mean people
You're
stop.
standing in the crosswalk at the canal. 15 people don't stop.
Yes.
I want to say that's a 5 to 10 year horizon on the capital improvement program.
So, but is that part of the it's not part of the GO bond,
I
correct?
don't know, but I remember conversation about the Stevens Ranch development and Southeast area plan
Triggering it.
triggering those improvements there.
So if it's a capital improvement project, that means, and we're just hypothesizing at this point. So if it is part of the transportation system plan, if it's not part of the GO bond, that means it's not getting funds from that. But if it's part of the long-term capital improvement projects, that means the money would come from future general fund, but not from the GO bond. So that would basically be a future city council will be asked at a certain time to say yes or no if the money is part of the budget.
Who knows?
So I don't know if that is on the project list right now, but it was. It was on the Go Bond list. I don't know where it got, its priority got moved up and down. So I don't know where it sits today, and obviously with the shortfall of cash, it's on the short end of things. But
This board should be able to, I should be able to find out that answer within 24 or 48 hours.
to the point with Stevens getting built out, and the whole point of getting Murphy Bridge done, so you have this east-west connectivity, that's completely botched by having that Ferguson just basically dead end on 15th.
Oh my gosh.
It destroys the whole benefit of being able to go from this new development in Stevens to be able to get over to Fred Meyer. You aren't going to be able to do it unless you go around on Knott.
And the Ferguson 27th Street upgrade, that is not part of the GO bond, but that is triggered by Stevens Ranch and the Southeast Area Plan. And that is even a bigger complication because it comes down a curved hill.
But it comes into that intersection,
Yeah.
which feeds to the problem that
Correct.
Dan's referencing.
And so it's all a domino effect of need and
But the closure time is going to be horrific.
Well, and I think that to her point, Old Farm residents should be aware, because everybody who makes that trip now understood when the city went in there and blocked that right-hand turn what the problem it caused. With the hope that that roundabout would be put in, and that was what we were told, the roundabout's coming. But if it's 5 to 10 years away, that's going to be a horrific problem. The traffic that's going to flow into that intersection from what's
they have
being
to
built
go
on the
back.
east.
so.
They go to something else.
And they need to be done in sequence. So
So
you,
just going off of rationale, we have a representative from Cascade East Transit that's just opened up a new bus route that goes to that intersection. It doesn't sound like it's being built the next year or two, because he would know about it.
Well, that's true. That's true.
I'm just putting that out there.
And I think it's going to be on that time horizon because the bulk of the Stevens Ranch stuff is going to be coming online in that 5-year window.
And they're not going to shut down 27th Street and 15th Street at the same time. They will have
They'll do
to,
one or the other.
it will be done one or the other. So once the roundabout's going at Wilderness Way, that pretty much means it's not going to be going in. They will never shut down 15th and 27th Street at the same
So I
time.
think they're juggling this with other projects.
because you got
a few years.
You got Wellness and Ferguson on 27.
Correct.
You got 2 roundabouts.
Actually, there's another one that's going to go even farther south.
Right. That one's a little bit further
Plus
down.
Reed, isn't Reed going to get converted?
It is,
Yeah.
That's-
it is,
Remarket?
yeah.
Yeah, so that would probably trigger Bear Creek as well then,
Yeah, they redirect Bear Creek. They're gonna
and a roundabout.
deactivate part of Bear Creek.
So just
So
for design standards, they never shut down parallel access routes.
to the point.
For the roundabout at 27 in Wilderness is the library, because they're moving forward with construction on there.
Yes.
That'll trigger the roundabout there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I mean, see, that's the logic is put the roundabouts in prior to the builds, but that's not.
They can't put
what's-
the roundabout in until they do the sewer line down 27.
There's no sewer line down there?
It's only an 8-inch line.
Yeah, that all has to be,
Updated,
yep.
just like they did on Ferguson.
And that all actually is happening. I mean, that is definitely gonna happen because of the Stevens
Stevens.
track.
You're supposed to have bus.
Are we still recording?
mobility
Yeah.
hub.
We all done?
Just
Am
for
I bad
the,
influence because I do this every time?
I was gonna say, for the sake of this meeting, do we have anything else to add to this meeting? Otherwise, I'm gonna request that we stop the recording.
I just wanted to ask, do we have any information on the signature gathering or potential signature gathering effort regarding the expansion of the Deschutes County Commission from 3 to 5?
No, let's bring that up the next meeting.
And we have a board position that's still available.
So we have one board position that's still available.
So if there are interested parties, we'd certainly like to hear from you. And if there's anyone who is on an HOA, one of the things that we would like to do is, develop a contact list with Old Farm HOAs so that we can get information out more thoroughly and in a more timely fashion, particularly when we have events like we just had for the transportation utility fee meeting. So
Yes, if you live in an HOA, please get us your contact information so that we can tell your HOA and they can tell you. This has nothing to do, we do not care how tall your grass is. We don't care what color your house is. We're just trying to help you understand what's going on in the city around you.
Your fence looks great.